Okay, doesn't usually give me that message, but hello, everyone.
Yeah, it started doing that now.
Yeah, that's different. Welcome to Travel Tuesday. I'm thrilled to continue the activity that we started a year ago, but we're still sheltering in place in Ontario for the moment anyway. So we're still continuing our travel dreams. Thank you everyone for joining. Just as a quick reminder, last week we had a very small but eager crowd to talk about sharing a travel memory. I know a few of you missed that, but we can maybe do another one of those in the future. We've had Auberge Saint-Antoine recently, Manoir Hubby. We had Costa Rica tourism. And coming up next week, we will have Visit Finland. So we'll be hosting the Finland Tourism Board. But today I am thrilled to have my partners from Remote Lands join us. They are a virtuoso travel partner of mine, and we work together to plan trips for clients to visit different parts of Asia. They will go through some of their background and their expertise. Today, we're focusing on Japan. So just a quick question, have many people already been to Japan? I know Laura has with her t-shirt.
I have.
Yep, I have.
Is that Shaw?
Yeah.
And Kathleen, was it, or B?
Nope. It was Helen. I've been to Japan.
Oh, Helen's been. Okay. So we got a few folks who've been and a few folks that have trips coming up, I believe. Well, with that, I will turn the floor over to our partners, Melisa Novick and Victoria Hilly, work with Remote Lands, which is a virtuoso partner of mine. They are joining us from New York City today. So we're all on the same time zone, which is great. We will turn the presentation over to them to do a PowerPoint. And if you have questions at the end, we can come on and they will address them. So thank you, Melisa and Victoria, and the floor is all yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sheila, for inviting us to your Travel Tuesday. As with you, we have really enjoyed the opportunity to engage and educate our clients and your clients on some of the amazing destinations that we sell within Asia. So today's session is a journey to Japan in the springtime. But for those of you that have been to Japan or are dreaming of other destinations in Asia, our partnership with Sheila will help you to travel to 33 countries in Asia. So whether it's Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Central Asia, the Stans, Indonesia, all you need to do is reach out to Sheila. And again, through the partnership that we have with Lush Life Travel, we can create these amazing travel opportunities for you and your traveling companions. So I'm Melisa Novick. I'm the Director of Business Development for Remote Lands. And I'm joined today by my friend, colleague, and our General Manager, Victoria Hilly. Victoria is our General Manager. Her travel stories are absolutely fascinating. The number of times that she's traveled to Japan is incredible. And I truly believe that you are in for a treat as she takes us through this amazing destination. So Victoria, I'm going to hand over the presentation to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Melisa. And thank you all for taking some time today for us to journey to Japan in the springtime. We're just going to pause and look at this photo for a second. Japan comes to life in the spring. Literally, during this period, the Japanese refer to this time as hanami, which is known as flower viewing. And it's a time when everyone starts admiring the beauty of the cherry blossoms with their family, their friends, their colleagues. And it's a very, very special time in Japan. The whole concept of this period for the Japanese spiritually and psychologically is known as a Japanese concept called Mono no Aware, which means the appreciation of the beauty of ephemeral things, that what is here today will be gone tomorrow, and we need to take the time to explore it, admire it, and drink it in. And therefore it sort of goes to the whole cherry blossom period. It starts at the end of March, it ends by mid-April, and it's very ephemeral and very beautiful. And so that whole concept of Mono no Aware just sort of goes through all of Japanese culture and life, but particularly during this time. And we love when you get a chance to go to Japan and experience that haname, reminding you internally that life is short, that we must make the most of it, and that by traveling for us, really we're grasping all of that and making sure that our inner Mono no Aware is totally taken care of. So there we go. We're going to journey to Japan in the springtime. Today, our journey is going to take us through a great itinerary. And obviously Japan is massive. It has 5 islands. There's so much to see. But for those of you who've been one time or 2 times, this is a great itinerary to follow. And the more you go back to Japan, like myself, as Melissa said, I've been 23 times. So I've had a chance to sort of explore some of the more remote niches. Our CEO, Catherine, is probably the greatest Japan expert that I know outside of Japan, and she loves delving in deep. But today we're going to just sort of look at those must-sees and see if we can bring those alive and convince you that you need to go back to Japan, either in the springtime or any time is a good time to travel. So we're going to start in Tokyo. We're going to go over to Kanazawa. We're going to make an onsen stop at a hot spring known as Yamanaka. We're going to go to Kyoto, and we're going to end in my favorite city in Japan, Osaka. Osaka to me is so overlooked on everyone's itinerary, but if you love food, which is my big passion in life, you will definitely love and need to add Osaka onto an itinerary. So let's not delay. Let's jump straight into Tokyo. Obviously the capital of Japan. And the amazing thing about Tokyo to me is that it has this wonderful blend of old and new. Japan is all about dichotomies. It's about modern and ancient, tradition and breaking tradition, hip and trendy, old and traditional. So you get all of this when you go just down a block in Tokyo. And I love to take on the old architecture, the temples, these special places, and old world Japan, and juxtapose it with the modern technology world of up and coming Tokyo. It really is such an amazing place to explore. While you're there, you're definitely going to want to take on the gardens, and the Imperial Palace Gardens are renowned not only for their cherry blossoms. If you recall that picture that we showed you when we said we were going to take a journey into Japan, that was Cherry Fushi, which is the Imperial Gardens collection of cherry blossoms, but also very famous for its moss gardens and its pine gardens. The Japanese, again, believe in this beauty and really contemplating beauty. And so the perfection of the gardens are beyond anything that we could imagine. They put so much care and thought and process into the garden. So visiting the Imperial Gardens is always important. A lot of people will ask here, should we also see the palace? It's there in the distance, but to take tours of the palace is quite challenging. They only allow group guided tours and only in Japanese language. So unless you have great Japanese skill, your translator is not allowed to translate to you while in residence. And therefore any bits and pieces would get lost, and then you'll get it shared later. It's not something I typically recommend. So unless you're a diehard palace visitor, I would suggest to stroll through the gardens and learn about the royal family from the outside rather than from the inside. Just my little tip. From here, we're going to look at some of the other really unique things that we can do in Tokyo. we've really spent a lot of time trying to find things that are very different or not as touristy and are offering more insight into the depth of the Japanese culture. And one of my favorite things to do is the Fukagawa Fudo fire ceremony that we can attend. Now, this particular temple, and like many temples, each temple in Japan sort of represents something different. So one temple might be great if you're looking to have children and need fertility. One might be just for your teenage son's success in school. Another might be for marriage and to find a good mate for your daughter. This particular temple, and they're very unique here. It's a very unique sect, is only interested in success and money and your success. So you go here if you want to be blessed with greater success in your business and greater success in your wallet. So you go, and the Japanese come here. So this is not really a touristy place, but the Japanese come, they have different sessions throughout the day. They sort of have an auditorium for you to sit cross-legged and watch them. And these monks chant. They have these great big taiko drums. They make a lot of noise. And then they light these various pots on fire. And with that, they offer the ability for people coming here to have blessings done on their business, and to make donations and blessings and put them through the fire to create this greater success. And then at the very end of it, and the crescendo with all this fire going and all of the drums going, they will invite you down to their fire bowls, and they will ask you to hand them either your iPhone, interesting, or your wallet, or your purse, one of these three things. And the monks will take it and pass it between them. And then they wave your iPhone or your wallet through the fire that is blessing it and bringing it more money. And it is just crazy and so much fun to see. And I really recommend it. And it will give you just such an interesting insight into the Japanese, and hopefully more money in your pocket as you leave, because we always believe in these great blessings. So that is the Fukagawa fire ceremony. You'll never see anything like it in the world, and it'll give you a deep understanding of some of the interesting nooks and crannies of the religious beliefs of Japan. Speaking of religious beliefs, we also have some wonderful temples that we can visit. This one, Senso Ji Temple, is one of the most important in all of Tokyo, and it is located in Asakusa. Asakusa is a neighborhood that really embellishes old world Japan. So this is where you're going to see some of those old wooden buildings, and also where you're going to pick up some great souvenirs and eat some great local traditional foods. So this is a wonderful neighborhood to visit and explore, giving that old world. And when you don't want old world, you're going to move on to its neighbor, Akihabara, which is all the bright lights and big city of Tokyo that you can imagine. So this is where you're going to find your pachinko parlors, your gachapon machines, all of the video games and anime. Particularly if you've got teenagers, everybody wants to know about the manga and the gachapon and the anime. This is the neighborhood that is going to be for them. This is also where you might buy all of your technology. People still want to go to Japan to buy cameras, etc. I mean, if there's still people who use cameras, this is the best place to get them. So these communities are right next door to each other, and they're a great showing of the dichotomy of old and new. Another new neighborhood that is super fun to visit is Harajuku. I don't know if you all remember Gwen Stefani's song, the Harajuku Girls. This is where all those girls come from. So this is where all of the teenagers of Japan love to come. It's a series of a couple streets. This is where the girls might dress up in schoolgirl outfits and Lolita outfits, which you also can dress up in when you're in Japan. So if you have an inkling to want to dress up and join in the fun of the community, we can make arrangements for you. And otherwise, you can just stroll through this neighborhood. It's super fun for shopping, particularly if you're looking for edgy or trendy clothing, jeans, vintage wear, bags, leather wear, shoes. Also for the foodie in you, there is so much stuff going on. You can see in the upper picture here, that is, what do you call that candy? The base, what is that?
And candy?
Cotton candy, thank you, yes. But the Japanese like everything to be cute. It's called kawaii, which is the word for cute in Japan. Anything that can be made into something super cute is what the Japanese want. So they've taken cotton candy and they've made it look like bunny rabbits. They've made it look like rainbows. You're gonna see a lot of food. Like there's an ice cream place here where you can order kitten ice cream and it comes out looking like a bunch of kittens in a basket, or puppy ice cream, or dragon ice cream. And they animate all your ice cream, and it's great for photos, for those Instagrammable moments, those TikTok moments. This is perfect for the kids. Now, if you're not traveling with teenagers or kids, this isn't necessarily the right neighborhood for everybody. So you might want to give it a pass, but it is fun just to stroll through for an eye-opening picture of the teenage scene in Japan to compare to our mall scene. It's a little bit different. It is definitely a little bit different. Another fun activity for everyone that I love, and this is our CEO, Catherine, who is squeezed between two sumo wrestlers. And one of our favorite activities is a sumo demonstration. Just so you know, with sumo, because everyone says, oh, I want to experience sumo when I'm in Japan, and that's great. But there's only 4 sumo tournaments throughout the year. There's a spring tournament, a summer tournament, a fall tournament, and the winter tournament. If you don't happen to be there on the exact dates of the tournament, you're not going to see any sumo matches. However, you can do what we call the sumo demonstration. These are 2 of our friends. They're retired wrestlers, and they run a restaurant, so you can go and have lunch with them. And then they love to talk about sumo, and they love to do a demonstration. And then for extra amounts of fun, your family can put on what I call the sumo fat suit. So you basically wrap yourself up in a sumo body, and then you're able to get into the ring with these guys and try out your sumo lesson, which is quite extraordinary. There are also opportunities to see what is called a sumo stable, which always occur early in the morning. And a stable is basically a school for sumo wrestlers. So children will enter a sumo school if they look like they may have skill or talent in the way of sumo at a very young age. And they will move into the school, and they will all live together in this sumo school. And then they will practice in the morning all of their sumo, whether they're practicing actual matches or if they're just doing sit-ups. The last time I went to a sumo, so I'm saying that only because a lot of people say, oh, I've got to go to a sumo stable, I have to see this. And then the last time I was there, I went with a group of clients that I was leading, and we went to the stable. We had to stay for an hour, and all they did was sit-ups the entire time. And I tell you, watching 20 men like this doing sit-ups for an hour was just too much. So I'm just saying it isn't always the best choice. So I much prefer the sumo demonstration, because we can at least show people the art of sumo and what it's all about. And if you're in town for the actual matches, we do everything we can to secure great seats for it, because it really is a phenomenal sport. So that's sumo. Again, because we're in Tokyo for cherry blossoms, I wanted just to highlight some of those places that we could see them. There's traditional and there's non-traditional. So this is my favorite secret place to see cherry blossoms. And yes, it is a cemetery, but the cemetery is very, very beautiful and very traditional and has hundreds and hundreds of cherry blossom trees. So it really is special. And it is in one of my favorite old neighborhoods of Tokyo. And what I love to do when we're designing trips for you to go to Japan is to take you to communities where the Japanese are actually living and the tourists are not walking. And it really brings Japan to life. So Yanaka is that neighborhood for me. And this is where you're going to see art galleries, pottery studios, some of the best street food in all of Tokyo, and great local shopping that's not tourist shopping, but is local shopping. And then just next door, you have Yanaka Cemetary with some of the best cherry blossoms. But if you want to see some of the most popular places in Tokyo for the cherry blossoms, you would go to Ueno Park, which is in walking distance from Yanaka. Now, something important to note, if you remember from the top, the hanami, so the practice of admiring cherry blossoms. So you can see in this picture that people come, they put their blankets down and they sit under the cherry blossom trees, and literally people will send one person early in the morning to put down the blanket and sit all day long until everyone else can join them in the evening for sunset. So you will see hordes and hordes of people on blankets throughout the parks. And while this picture is showing you just one person on a bench in Ueno Park, what we're not showing you is the picture of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who will be guaranteed at the park the entire time. Just as an aside, this springtime, we had beautiful cherry blossoms in New York, truly, truly beautiful. And I luckily live on a little island in the East River called Roosevelt Island that is very famous for its cherry blossoms. It has hundreds of cherry trees. So every day I went out during cherry blossom and I took pictures of all the cherry trees. And the fact that there was no people, obviously it's COVID, so there also was no people, but it was very, very beautiful. And obviously nobody sits under the tree. There's no crowds. So I was sending all the pictures to all of our friends in Japan saying, this was my cherry blossom walk today. This was my hanami. And they all wrote back and said, why do Americans come to Japan in the springtime? You have just as many beautiful trees. And I bet you have them in Canada as well. So it is quite funny to the Japanese that we also want to only go to Japan in the springtime to visit the trees when we have just as many beautiful trees here in North America. So I just thought that was really funny. So I like to tease them with more and more shots that I was taking of the trees in my neighborhood. Other great things that you can do while you're visiting in Tokyo, possibly a sushi making class. Sushi can be done at all levels. So if people want a basic sushi class or a cooking school, or it can go all the way up to very fancy and formal cooking classes with Michelin star chefs. So again, depending on what you're looking for, what your experience desire is, we can definitely arrange either sushi or even soba noodles or other types of cooking classes in Japan to give you more of a hands-on experience. Food is everything in Japan, and sushi definitely takes the top pick for many. I do feel sad for anyone going to Japan who's allergic to seafood or doesn't want to eat raw fish. It's so good. I had salmon sashimi for lunch today. I felt very good about that. All right. Again, Ginza is very famous in Tokyo for the shopping. So if people want to get their shopping on, definitely can be done. Some of my favorite things on Ginza, just to keep in mind, the Kit Kat store. I love people when they go to the Kit Kat store. The Japanese are obsessed with Kit Kat flavors. And at any given time in the Kit Kat store, you may find Kit Kats up to 50 different flavors. They have popcorn flavor, cherry blossom flavor, sake flavor, wine flavored, chocolate flavor, like everything that you could imagine. And for the kids, if they're really interested, we can do a Kit Kat making class where we can design our own flavors and make Kit Kats. Also, the stationery stores in Ginza, I'm obsessed with. Nobody can do stationery the way the Japanese does. And every single time I get like half a suitcase of Post-its and paper and pens and stickers that I had no idea that I needed. So I do recommend, if you have any inkling towards those things, Ginza and other shopping in Tokyo is wonderful. I just wanted to highlight a few hotels, but there's obviously plenty. We have the beautiful Peninsula as one of our favorite properties, and also the Amon Tokyo, which is just a design wonder, architecturally stunning. And just out the window, you have the Imperial Palace Gardens. But there are many choices. So this is just showing two properties that we do love. Then we're going to move on to Kanazawa. Kanazawa is on the west coast of Japan, and to me embodies the old world of Japan that sort of Kyoto 20 years ago. Here you're going to have, again, beautiful cherry blossoms, but lots of wonderful gardens to explore. The most important garden in Kanazawa is the Kenrokuen Garden. It is considered one of the top 3 gardens in all of Japan, and follows the theory of the 7 sublimities of garden design. I'm not going to list out the 7 sublimities, but just so you know, it's that important. One of the other things you see in this picture that I love about Kenrokuen, so they have these beautiful old pine trees that are so ancient and fragile. And you can see in the corner the ropes that they have attached to the trees. This is called wintering of the trees. So this is not a spring shot that we've added. It's actually a shot that probably would have been taken in late November. And they attach all of these ropes to the branches of the trees so that when the snow falls, the weight of the snow doesn't break the tree, and it's holding and supporting them like puppets. And it's so beautiful. So Kanazawa is one of my favorite places any time of year to travel. The garden is very, very special. You also can get a lot of hands-on experiences. Kanazawa is like the center of art for all of Japan, and this is where all the traditional arts are going to be found. So here we're seeing the kimono makers at the Kaga Yuzen dyeing studio, where they're hand dyeing the beautiful fabrics that make kimono. Also, you're going to find lacquerware, pottery ware, and all sorts of local arts. So if people are interested in traditional arts, so important to go to Kanazawa and to experience that. Also, the town is very famous for both its geisha district as well as its samurai district. And you're going to get that old world feeling with the old wooden buildings and women walking around in their yukata and their kimono. So it's really very beautiful and very traditional. Then just outside of Kanazawa, there are 2 wonderful towns that are UNESCO sites. Shirakawa-go, that is very famous for its farmhouses that are gasho farmhouses with their straw roofs all the way down to the ground. Architecturally, this was done again because of the heavy, heavy, heavy snows of this area. And so by creating the roofs this way, they're able to insulate and keep themselves quite warm in the very, very harsh winters that happen in this area or have happened in this area. Takayama is next door to Shirakawa-go. This is a place that we can either stay overnight or potentially just come and visit this very, very charming town. It's very famous for some of its festivals, and it's surrounded by rice paddy fields. So if you want to do any biking or visiting the countryside, this is a wonderful area to be doing that. That can be done as a day trip or an overnight. Speaking of overnight, in Kanazawa, our latest addition to the hotel scene is the Hyatt Centric. We're very excited about that because before we were only looking at about 3-star level hotels. So this is adding that 4.5, 5-star level hotel to the hotel scene, making it much more comfortable to stay in Kanazawa. And this hotel is right across the street from the Kanazawa Fish Market. Kanazawa is very, very famous for its seafood. So if you, again, love seafood, this is a great destination to explore the food scene. From here, we are going to pop on over to Kaga Onsen, to a very special ryokan. And I wanted to take a moment to talk about ryokans and why or how to incorporate them throughout your stay. A lot of people, when they want to travel to Japan, want to stay traditionally in these, experiencing the Japanese inn. Most ryokan, so that is a Japanese inn, it's the term for an inn, will also have an onsen, which means the hot bath or the hot spring. Not all Japanese inns have hot springs, but usually when you're planning that into your stay, you are hoping to get both the traditional experience of having the onsen, the hot spring, as well as to have the traditional inn experience. There's a couple of things to keep in mind. For most people traveling to Japan, 1 to 2 nights all together is enough. And if you have in your head that you would like to be staying in traditional inns for the whole whole time during Japan, I'd love to have a call with you and talk you through that decision. Because ryokans come with a lot of rules. When you show up, you're not allowed to wear shoes. You have to wear the wooden sandals that they provide. You typically have to wear the yukata, or the traditional cotton robe, and you're not going to walk around in your jeans. They have a special meal in the evening that's called a kaiseki meal. And traditionally, it's about 15 to 25 courses, small courses, but a lot of courses of food. You stay in the inn from the Japanese perspective to embrace the beauty of the food. And really, the food is quite the showcase. So you're going for the meal. So if you stay many, many nights, these meals start to add up with each other. 25 courses a night is a lot of courses of very traditional Japanese food. So I just always caution and say, one night you get that experience. Maybe you stay in the yukata bed, those beds on the floor, the futon mats. Get your whole feeling, understand the Japanese culture, and then go back to the luxury of a 5-star hotel. It's not for everyone, but other people have different views. The other thing to keep in mind with the onsen baths, a lot of time we will select ryokans with private baths so that you have a bath as part of your accommodation. But most Japanese onsens are public for the whole hotel to use, and they will actually have a men's section and a women's section. And when you go into that women's section or that man's section, I know we're mostly women on the call tonight, but either way, you will be expected to fully disrobe with hardly even a little mini towel to keep yourself covered. And so you've got to be very, very sure with yourself that you're ready to walk in with Japanese ladies and get naked and enjoy that. So again, we always caution the decisions that people make and want to make sure that everyone is very, very comfortable in the various settings so that they can truly enjoy what they're there to explore. Hopefully that was a little bit clear. I'm not trying to put anyone off. I just want to demystify it and make sure that we're all very clear as to what is on offer in the ryokan. Now, this area, before we leave, Kyoto is actually my very favorite ryokan in all of Japan. I love it because it's set in this beautiful wooded area with a beautiful gorge that you can go walking through. But the town of Yamanaka itself has many special artisans and galleries. One of my closest contacts in Japan is a washi paper maker. She makes traditional paper, Japanese style, and you can visit her in her gallery, but she actually is a contemporary washi maker. So she showcases her contemporary paper around the world. She studied at the London School of Design. She showcased her art here in New York and around the world. And she's so much fun to be around. And we love to either showcase her work in a studio and to understand what a Japanese studio feels and looks like, but also if you wanted to learn how to paper make and try that on yourself, that's a possibility as well, but you don't have to. But it is super fun and it really gives an insight into some of the traditional arts of Japan. So from Yamanaka, we're going to wing our way. Well, we're going to wing. We're going to take a train over to Kyoto. Such a beautiful place. Kyoto, obviously, again, embodies the tradition of Japan. It has many, many, many temples and these old cobble streets and, you know, embodies the tradition of Japan. It really is very special.
Maria, pardon me. We had a question about the artist on your last slide. Do you know the artist?
Yes, I do. Her name is Mika Hori.
Thank you.
Yep. Sure. Okay, so just going to walk you through some of the highlights of Kyoto. One of my favorite things is the Nijo Castle. It was an original samurai protected castle, and it's really special in that the floors of the castle, instead of having a moat surrounding it, its protection are what are known as the nightingale floors. So there are these metal floors that underneath them, they have a series of nails, old rusted nails that sort of intertwine with each other. So when you step on the floor, the floor makes a sound of nightingale birds quite loudly. And so there's no way anyone could sneak upon the castle, because every step that you take, the birds are singing and singing and singing. And it's just, to me, such a unique and extraordinary way of protecting a castle while keeping it aesthetically perfect. So I really say it is a must visit. Another must visit is the Golden Pavilion. This also was the home of a samurai lord originally, and then afterwards it became a temple in the Shinto faith. It is just 2 rooms. So a lot of times when people say, oh, I must go see Kinkakuji, the Golden Temple of Kyoto, it's so special. And then they get there and they're expecting something huge and large and massive, and it's just 2 tiny daint rooms that are really quite beautiful, but a lot of people are like, wait, that's not exactly how I prepared in my head to see this. Again, when you go to these temple areas, what you're looking at as well are the richness of the gardens, the moss, the pine trees, the Japanese red maple. It's so special, whether it's spring or winter or fall, and you're taking on all of that garden. Another great temple to visit, and to me a must-do, is Kiyomizu-dera. It is up on Heian Mountain, and it looks out over old Kyoto. As you walk up, you're going to walk through a district that has tons of shops, so it's super fun, the Higashiyama district. And this is where you might want to try some black sesame ice cream or some matcha tea, or explore and buy some souvenirs. And then you reach the temple. It's so beautiful, very, very famous as a temple for fertility. And there is a waterfall that runs down the side, and you can go, and there is a series of 3 pools that you can participate and take a ladle, drink the water. First you wash your hands, you cleanse yourself, you drink the water, and then you wash your hands again. And it's quite a ritual and something quite special for people to immerse themselves with some of the religious culture of Japan. Also in this area is the ancient Gion District. So this again is that old geisha district. Beautiful wooden buildings. There are some amazing areas along here that have tons of cherry blossoms, so amazing to visit in the springtime. We can arrange tea with a Mako, one of my favorite things to do. A Mako is a geisha in training, and you can sit and talk with her and find out why she chose her lifestyle and what the plans are that she has for her future. Or you can meet with a geisha or do a geisha dinner, much more formal, quite expensive, but very, very grand, and really showcases the rich culture of these women. And why they choose their lifestyle. A lot of people think that the geisha culture has something to do with prostitution. It has nothing to do with prostitution. Absolutely not. It's totally a misconception that we have in the West. It's really about entertainment and beauty, and nothing to do with anything untoward. So just so you know, we really recommend that people get more in depth with this culture and understand more about what's going on in Japan. Outside of Kyoto, in the Western District, is an area called Arashiyama. It is very beautiful. Arashiyama is actually, we don't have the picture for it. We wanted just to showcase Japan in the fall as well. So the Hogizawa River is here in Arashiyama, but this is also where you're going to have the bamboo forest. And when people say, oh, I need to go to the bamboo forest, that is here in Arashiyama, and it's absolutely beautiful, amazing for Instagram shots, but also just so peaceful to walk through and experience. From here, you can also go to Tenryuji Temple. Again, you'll see the moss, the pines, and the red maple that is so important in the Japanese garden design. You won't find in some of these temple in the rich gardens the cherry blossoms. The cherry blossoms are relegated to the outside because, again, they are ephemeral. They are going to go away. And so we focus the center of the temple always on perennials, moss that will grow forever, that we can shape and grow, the pine trees that we can clip and grow into the shape and form of the beauty that we want them to be part of forever. So it really is quite an interesting philosophy of how they manage their gardens. If people are interested in markets, there are great markets in Kyoto. Nishiki Market is super fun to walk through. Kyoto is not as famous for its fish markets because it is not on the sea, and any Japanese will tell you a fish market should only be directly attached to the ocean. So here you're going to find some of that fish, but mostly other savory food and fun things to shop and eat your way through. From here, maybe we would take a stroll down the Philosopher's Path. This is a place, again, that was built it was actually a philosopher. So one of the university professors would walk down here every day. And so they planted the trees so that he could contemplate the concept of Mono no Oware as he was walking from his university to the temples. There are quite a few temples along this path. It is a beautiful, beautiful walk. If people don't want to walk, there's also road access to various parts. But I do recommend, it takes about 20 minutes to walk along the whole of the Philosopher's Path. And if you are in the springtime, it is stunning because both sides are all cherry blossoms. It's just a tunnel of beauty. It's really lovely. Along this path, you will find the silver pavilion known as Ginkakuji in Japanese. Also very famous for its garden, its moss garden collection, probably the second finest moss garden in Japan, if that was your thing. So just sharing. Other things that you might do culturally while you're in Kyoto, perhaps a tea ceremony. A tea ceremony can either be done in a tea house with a woman who is a tea aficionado, or perhaps in a temple with a tea master. The tea ceremony really is a wonderful way to understand the Japanese culture. And it's all about a process. Who drinks the tea, how fast you drink the tea, how the tea is poured, how the tea is heated, how it is reheated. Again, to me, everything in Japan is sort of like a poem. And when you watch the tea ceremony, you start to understand everything that goes into Japanese culture that is so very different from our Western culture. Wanted just to highlight a few of the accommodations in Kyoto. The Four Seasons is a lovely option. Also the Ritz-Carlton, an absolutely stunning option. And Amon has recently opened a new property that is just behind the Ginkakuji Silver Pavilion and the Philosopher's Walk. If you wanted to stay in an area that was fully wooded and really felt very traditional, this might be a great option for you. And then from here, we are going to wing our way over to, well, we're taking a train, maybe we're driving actually, to Osaka, which is just about an hour drive away from Kyoto. As I said, it is my favorite city in Japan. I love the modernity of it. I also love the pace of it. It is it's just sort of slow and chilled back, but yet it's modern, but it is also the kitchen of Japan. So if you love food, nobody cooks better or prepares food better than the people of Osaka. I swear by it. I swear by it. On the way, we might stop at the Fushimi Inari Shrine, which is a very famous series of over 1,000 red torii gates that have been donated by families to honor their ancestors. And you can sort of walk through this up to the Shinto shrine. It's quite spectacular. Maybe you would visit Nara, which is the first ancient capital of Japan. Of the three capitals, this was the first. They have a thing about deer here. They believe that the first emperor of Japan who united the 5 islands came from the heavens on the back of a deer and landed here in Nara to start the capital. And so when you walk around Nara, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of deer that you can feed, or perhaps we can arrange for a trumpeter to come out into the middle of the field and call them on his trumpet, and hundreds of them will come and run around you and surround you. You better love deer, but they are very, very sweet. It's quite special here how spiritual the deer are. Now, when you're in Osaka, you will definitely visit the Osaka Castle. Osaka Castle has, again, from a cherry blossom perspective, some of the greatest collection of cherry blossom trees. I believe at last count, there was something like 27,000 cherry blossom trees that surround Osaka Castle in a very large park. It is just mind-blowing during the cherry blossom season, particularly because it is surrounded by a moat. And so when the petals fall into the moat, it's like the river is hot pink. I just love it. Also in Osaka, you have the Bright Lights Big City of the Downtonbury District. Osaka has the finest collection of Japanese neon in the country. When you think of neon, it is from Osaka, and it is just amazing how it all comes to life. And then on the next slide, we're highlighting some of my favorite foods of Osaka. That area with all the bright lights has hundreds and hundreds of restaurants, and you can really come in and try everything from takoyaki, which is in the upper corner, that is fried octopus balls. Yum. Underneath the fried octopus balls, we have okonomiyaki, which is my favorite food in all of Japan. It is the savory pancake that is sort of a savory pancake covered in tuna bonito flakes, and you cook it at your own table. So they'll give you your own spatulas and you can grow your own pancake. It's absolutely amazing. And then the fish that we are representing in the bowl is fugu fish. If you've ever heard of fugu, this is the fish that will kill you if it is not prepared correctly. So you need to have a very skilled and licensed chef who will slice the fugu fish. So if you have any adventure in your soul, this might be for you. And otherwise, I'd say, don't try it. But that is definitely something that is available amongst hundreds of other great things that you can try when in Osaka. Our favorite hotel in Osaka is the Conrad, which recently opened, but there's also a St. Regis and there's also a Ritz-Carlton. So you definitely can stay in great comfort. And that concludes my brief tour of Japan in the springtime. Sheila, you're on mute.
My turn now. That's terrific, Victoria. Thank you so much. For those who are watching on Facebook, I'm going to stop the streaming. If you have any questions, you can email us, but I want to give the people who are here the chance to come back with their faces on. So you can email me, sheila@lushlife.ca, and we'll turn it over to the folks who are with us. If you, shall we turn off the share screen there, Victoria?
Oh, is it me? Sure.
Oh, I have it, I think. One moment.
Perfect.
We are, Sheila, the share screen is off, so everybody's faces are.
Okay, perfect. I'll just make sure the view is gallery view. And we have everyone's faces. So if anyone has questions, you can either raise a hand or type it in, and feel free to unmute yourself. And we have the experts here, so it's a great opportunity. Melissa and Victoria, that was a great presentation and great overview. Thank you so much for your time. Makes me want to go to Japan even more.
That's the goal. You're all supposed to go, oh, I need to go back, or I need to go. So thank you all so much for joining.
Does anyone have any questions? Laura just typed in, she had sushi yesterday. Now she wants to try the rest.
Excellent.
That you showed. Laura, did you do a sushi making class when you travel there?
No, I just ate it.
Perfect.
It's easier. They know what they're doing. I'll let them do it.
Just a question.
Diane, yes, go ahead.
Just a question. We didn't talk about it at all, but how much should you budget per day? Because I saw that lots of the suggested hotels are all like Hilton and Conrad, and this is all very expensive regularly, and it must be double or triple in Japan. Japan is known to be expensive, and then if you go on top of that, going with the top-notch hotel.
Absolutely.
You know,
So I would say that the trip that I've put forward with the top hotels, you'd be looking at between $3,000 to $4,000 US a day.
a day.
A day.
$3,000 to $4,000. Wow.
So things like cars, drivers, the hotels, particularly during cherry blossom, are very, very expensive. But you can, you can choose your hotels more wisely. I mean, hotels will always be expensive. Typically, a 4-star hotel would be looking around $400 to $500 a night in Tokyo during peak season. So there are ways to cut back. We always try to work with people on their budgets. Sometimes we'll say, hey, let's not take a car this day. Let's take the subway instead. If we can, look at ways to minimize, we can certainly try to work on any budget or advise regarding budget.
Awesome.
Japan is definitely, I think, of everywhere, going to always be one of the most expensive destinations.
Yes, I'm expecting that, but I'm trying to get an idea about how you're calculating here, because if, let's just assume on that per night $500 US, how does it come to 3,000?
So typically the
If you're
guides
going
that
walking in the garden, how can it come to 3,000?
I totally understand. So a guide, a skilled guide, like a really good skilled English speaking guide, will typically charge about $1,000 a day.
Okay, it's the guide.
And a car and a driver in Japan is about $1,000 a day.
Okay.
So when you put those together, just for that, before anything else gets done, that's 2,000 straight there.
Okay, I understand.
It's just to give you a sense, and we haven't worked together on a trip yet, Diane, but this is a customized trip, so obviously we're dealing with a high-end destination, especially in times of COVID, but it's also the mode of travel as well, because there would be different ways to travel, whether it's an escorted tour or other options. But a customized trip that has, as Melissa has mentioned, or Victoria has mentioned, the private car and driver, the customized tours, it just is a different way of traveling.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Kathleen.
So are those the only types of trips that you arrange? Or are there like group trips that can be arranged?
Melissa and Victoria are oh, sorry, are you
I'm
on
sure,
mute?
I'm
Go
going to
ahead.
let you take this. So our company only does bespoke private journeys. But Sheila, I'm sure that you have options for everyone to consider for group trips and other types of journeys as well.
Right. There would be a range of different, Kathleen, much like I work with you to find the best cruise line or different tours. If we're doing a customized trip, it's matching it to your budget and the style of travel you want for a particular trip. Sometimes you might want a group trip if you're going somewhere, perhaps like Peru, but a customized trip to somewhere like Japan would give you very different options.
Okay, because it looks absolutely fascinating.
It is such an amazing destination. It truly is. I mean, whichever way you go, I think that there's no country that I've ever experienced. And again, I keep going back, and every single time I go, it surprises me because it's so different from what I'm used to. And I mean, I think Melissa had mentioned, but I've been to 128 countries. So I've definitely seen a lot of places. But Japan, every single time, challenges me with the dichotomies. And it surprises me every corner that you turn when you see just the different ways. And I really encourage everybody at some point to find a way to Japan, whether it's with us on a luxury FIT private experience, or whether it's a group trip, or whether you go on your own, go. Because it is so amazing and extraordinary to see this particular way of life that's so unique. I watched Bob Costas on a TV show interview talking about the IOC and the Japan Olympics. Are you guys doing any trips there this year, or what's the status right now? Well, I mean, at the moment, so yes, we've arranged quite a few trips to see the Olympics, and unfortunately the IOC and Japan have determined that indeed no tourists can visit during the Olympics. So we're in a little bit of a goodness. And then it looks like this week they're even talking about canceling the Olympics altogether. Yeah. So it's such a shame. But we'll see what happens. Here's hoping it gets deferred, not canceled.
Although that makes your life even more complicated, I'm
It makes
sure.
our life very, very complicated, but we're almost at the Winter Games in Beijing. It starts to make everything so complicated the more we defer. So, but I just really feel so sorry for all of the athletes and all of the work that they've all put in and their dreams. And like, you don't get younger when you're an athlete, you know, and like, I just feel so badly for them that they may not have the experience that they so deserve. So it's just, it's a shame.
And it's one thing to have festivals that happen, you know, once every 10 years, like the Floriade in Amsterdam or Oberammergau in Germany get canceled and then done 2 years later, but it's not an athlete who's training to be at the peak of their career. It's so unfortunate.
Absolutely. Sha, I see that. I think you have a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to mention it to you that my two best experiences in Japan, like I did the sushi class, I visit Osaka, Tokyo, we stayed 10 nights. So I did a whole month of trip. And the best experience was the spring bath in Kanazawa. You are in the middle of the mountains and the food was included. And like you said, there was a lot of variety in food and we all wore kimonos. But that was the best experience.
Oh, good.
Felt, you know, and the Fiji mountain was the second, which was just totally beautiful.
Wonderful.
Oh, awesome. How many times have you been, Sha?
Just once.
Just
but I
once.
did
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Laura, have you been once or more than once?
I've been once. I was up in the North Island, Hokkaido and Sapporo, and then down in the south in Tokyo. But I had a question. You do Asia only?
We do Asia only. 33 countries throughout the continent.
Is Afghanistan one of them?
It is not one of them.
But they do the stands.
Yeah, we do this. We do the stands. And the last time that I was in Tajikistan, I did my own cheeky step into Afghanistan. But because of the safety and the insurance required, our company just simply cannot look at Afghanistan as an option. But we have had our clients, while traveling in that area, do a side trip, and we may be able to do introductions, but we won't actually take people into Afghanistan. But I would.
It's a hard one to find a tour to, that's for sure.
It's definitely a hard time, particularly right now.
Yeah.
We need, especially with the Taliban coming back into power or doing whatever they're doing. So, but is that on your list, Laura? Do you need to go to Afghanistan?
Yeah, like you, I've done 158. I have 37 more to go, and Afghanistan's one of them. So I'm trying to figure out how to get.
Oh, wow.
You're my hero. I'm not worthy.
So you also want to do the stands, right? So you never know.
Okay.
Well, I can certainly, I mean, Sheila, I've been to the stands so many times. I'm happy to have a call anytime to talk about the stands. I can even tell you how to get into Afghanistan on the way if you're doing the Pamirs. I spent 2 weeks doing the Pamir Highway, and it goes along the border of Afghanistan. So you can see Afghanistan for days.
Wow. Helen, I think you had a question?
Oh, it's just a small question. I went to Japan, but it was a long time ago in the late 80s. So, and I went for about 3 weeks, and, you know, I traveled staying in hostels and, you know, had a Japan rail pass. So it was a different experience. There's lots I don't remember too, because there's a lot of trips between there. But we went to, it was, you know, February, and it snowed quite a bit when we were there. It was the beginning of a trip. I went to some other countries after, so I wasn't carrying a lot of winter clothes. It was quite cold. But anyways, the thing is that we went to Mount Fuji, but the weather was not great then. But you didn't mention it. So what do you plan? Do you go to Mount Fuji sometimes on some of your trips?
We certainly do. So if we had, so in this scenario, I had gone over to Kanazawa and then ended in Osaka, but a lot of times we'll actually omit the Kanazawa, or we'll do a first full circle. So Hakone, or Mount Fuji, sits between Kyoto and Tokyo. So a lot of times we would end in Hakone and stay at a ryokan there, like Sha did, and have this beautiful experience in Hakone. And then drive from Hakone to the airport. So that's a nice place to end the trip. Now on the Hakone front, I do love it, and it gets you quite close to Mount Fuji, but it's still over 20 kilometers away from Mount Fuji.
And it can be a little bit touristy during the daytime. A lot of bus tours come in from Tokyo. So depending on what clients are looking for, we may choose alternative destinations rather than Hakone because of the sheer volume of tourists. But Hakone also has some of the best contemporary art museums and art collections. So it's a great balance of contemporary art museums as well as the natural beauty of Fuji, and then understanding the volcanic activity that's in the area. So it is definitely worth adding on if you have the days.
And I'll just ask one question for a client who couldn't join. I know they have an interest in anime. Is that something you can do as well if people want to get?
For sure. So for anime, and again, there's all sorts of levels. So we kind of want to know even more about what they're looking for. But Tokyo and Kyoto are great destinations for anime. In Kyoto, we can even get them lessons, some anime drawing lessons if they're interested. And you've got various museums, et cetera. So we can make it all about anime or just do parts about anime throughout. Teenagers, I'm assuming.
Well, young adults, yeah. With a family trip. Sorry,
Absolutely.
Kathleen, you had a question?
Yes, you focused a lot on the springtime.
Yeah.
What are other times that the weather would be comfortable?
So my favorite 2 times to travel to Japan are the spring and the fall. And autumn is so stunning in Japan, but literally 365 days a year are perfect. The summer can be hot, but ours is as well. And winter can be snowy, but typically the snows don't start into Japan until January and February. So if people are looking for skiing, December is not good. They're going to be wanting to look at mid-January and into February for great powder snow. But really any time of year. But we say they have 4 seasons. And so people have to prepare and pack for that season. And that season's going to be very similar to our seasons. And so,
how cold does it get in the winter?
it can get quite cold. I'm trying to think, like, I mean, it can definitely go into the negatives. It's not going to be extreme Canada cold. So y'all are fine. But I mean,
we don't want to travel with winter coats.
I mean, Japan is very famous for its snow, particularly its powder snow. It has some of the best skiing in the world, particularly for that powder, which needs a specific temperature, but don't quote me on what that is to create that light powdery snow. But that's sort of what we're looking at in Japan.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, that's wonderful, Victoria and Melissa. Thank you. We're over 6. If there's one more question, we can raise it with the experts while we have them.
Do you do Saudi Arabia, Yemen, or Syria?
We are about to do Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
I wish we could do Yemen. I was recently at the border of Yemen. I'm all about the borders and can't get in. And Syria, no, because of the war.
Yeah. Okay.
zones.
So Saudi
the
Arabia
area-
might be opening up again soon?
Hopefully.
Okay. But they opened up and then
Yes.
the pandemic hit
Yeah.
and then they shut down again.
Yeah.
As you've gathered, Laura has a very specific wish list. And,
I
got those
need
37.
to see Laura's 158 list, and I need to see what's missing.
she sent me an email. I can.
Honestly, I admire you so much, and I would love to see that list just for my own admiration. So have you seen the book Chasing 193?
No?
You should get this book. It's
Okay.
a book all about people who've reached every country in the world. And it's a fabulous travelogue of people like yourself, Laura.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this year's been like terrible. I haven't been able to go anywhere for a whole year. I'm going crazy.
It's been a rough 15 months.
I feel you.
It certainly can. Well, and thank you, Melissa and Victoria. We're kept you a little bit over time, but I think everybody enjoyed the presentation. Lots of great comments. As with any supplier that I work with, it's all about finding the right match for you. So if this is a great match for you, we can have a conversation. Victoria is going to send me a copy of the itinerary she presented today. So if that specific one interests you, let me know and I will share it with everyone. Of course, if this isn't your style of travel, we can have a conversation about what is your preferred style. But Victoria, Melissa, you mentioned the 33 countries you do in Asia, so it's not just Japan. And we've hinted at some of those. So obviously these guys are virtuoso partners of mine, and I work with them to do trips for clients, higher end trips to any of these fantastic Asian destinations. So thank you very much, everyone. Melissa, thank you for coming out.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Thank you for having us. It was our pleasure, and we wish you all a fantastic rest of your day and your Travel Tuesday.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you,
Sheila, for
Victoria.
organizing. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Thanks very much.